Daniel, could you give us your feedback? Then we'll go to Louisa, then we'll go to McCaul, and then we'll bring you guys in. Okay? So short, sharp, you know the drill. Daniel, let's roll.
Yeah, so we spoke about can agility, bureaucracy, and innovation coexist in an organization? And coming from a public sector myself, it was a very, very interesting topic. And I think we sort of concluded that in certain organizations, the two must coexist. One, meaning that the operational side of the business must have its processes and some bureaucracy. And then if you're looking at the future, you need to look a bit more of agility and innovation. So it was quite engaging. A few questions asked about how to empower employees and stuff like that. So I didn't have all the answers, but I think I provoked some thoughts around the whole topic. Yeah.
Thank you, Daniel. Louisa?
So we were talking about emotional intelligence and how it impacts team and productivity. And I was just trying to get across to everyone that these are skills that we need to be productive, to be successful, both at work and at home, to let people understand that as a leader, you need to be aware of your emotions and you need to be aware of how your actions impact others and how people would react to anything that you do. We talked about the 5 key elements of emotional intelligence, and we also talked about how you could use emotional intelligence to perform as a team and how to create an emotionally intelligent team. And then after that, a few questions as well. That was it in a nutshell.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you very much. McCaul?
Well, I have some trouble sitting. I have attention deficit disorder, and I like to be active. I'm very engaged by intellectual discussion, but I had prepared a talk actually rather similar to several of the topics that we'd already discussed. So I came in this morning and said, could I change it up? Could we do something that's a little bit different? So in my room, instead of talking about leadership and agility, we tried to experience it. Now, many of the folks that were in the room had already been part of an Agile team before, and there was a prompt this morning, actually, that Nana put in our group chat, which said, there's so much failure in Agile. There's so often we see these teams that don't work. Maybe we should be thinking about the next thing. And that is a truism, and I promise I'm getting to the point here, Robin. That is a truism on many teams that I've been a part of. Very few Agile teams, Scrum or whatever framework they might be using, actually become very, very effective. But some achieve this level of effectiveness that is rare and incredibly fragile. But when you've been a part of it, you know it. Dr. Sutherland talks about it as being hyper-productivity. We created an environment where people were able to tap into that just a little bit. We folded paper airplanes for our aircraft fantasy, but we did it in teams with a set of rules that let us really feel what that was like. And at the end of the session, we talked about what that felt like. And I asked the room, how many folks here just absolutely loved, how many folks had a good time? And many hands went up, thankfully. And I said, how many of you just really loved making paper airplanes? And there was actually 1 or 2 folks that were like, yeah, I just love that. And the rest of them, when they explored what was it that was so satisfying, it was being part of that self-exploring, continually approving team that was really, really powerful. And so the thing that we got to leave with was, it's not specific to creating airplanes that lets us do that. That is something we can find in our lives. And so there's some element of fun that can be derived from this very human way of interacting that is based in being really, really awesome at doing what you do. That human desire to be super, super effective. And so if you get a chance to do something like that, if you find yourself on a team like that, don't lose it. It's key to doing Agile effectively and not just doing it.
Brilliant. Brilliant.
And what I like about that is that folks in that room, that's an experience. The beauty of an experience is it's yours.
Yeah.
Nobody can tell you anything about it, it's yours. So that was Daddy the school teacher. Thanks, Dad. Okay, now it really is your turn to talk. So let's have some questions for the panel. And yeah, very much, Mike. So who is going to kick us off? I'm looking at this corner over there. Like that. Who wants to start? Who's got a question? Okay. Fire away.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for the opportunity to attend such an important and amazing conference. I was in Dr. Louisa's break room, and she made several poignant points about the importance of emotional intelligence and addressing the needs of teams and all of those things. I had a question there, and I want to continue to follow up with that question here as well. In leadership, and there was a study published in 2013 that stated that oftentimes, one out of 5 times, there's a likelihood that a leader or a leader of a team will probably be a psychopath or a sociopath. Yeah, it's an interesting article I read as well on Forbes. Was also published on Forbes as well. That leaders or people who lead such big teams or manage large corporations tend to have elements of sociopathy or psychopathy with them. Now, the follow-up question here is this: how does a person's knowledge of emotional intelligence come into foreplay in addressing having such a leader or a person who leads you who is something like this, who has certain traits like this? Does one ensure that they're able to maximize their results or their capacity or their goals in the team, having such a person who works with them, or having such a person as their boss or their team lead? Thank you.
Whew. I tell you what, it's at moments like this where I'm pleased. I'm just the MC. So, over to you, panel. First of all, let me just reiterate, it was a great question, but essentially, there is a characteristic in leadership which is so, and how does one, correct me if I'm wrong, how does one actually deal with a leader like that if you are in that team being challenged by those being? So, is that correct? Panel, over to you.
That's a tough question. I don't know where to start. I think the thing is that you need to start with knowing yourself, and you need to understand how you would react to something like that, because whatever happens, at some point in life, you would come across such a leader. I myself have come across people like that. But the point is, I always believe that you are the one that will tell people how to treat you and how to behave towards you. If not too long ago I dealt with a guy that I thought was crazy, I still think he's crazy. And, you know, he talks over you, you go into meetings and you get bashed and everything. And then I was like, someone was talking about silence the other day, so I was like, the first time I'm quiet, I listen. The second time, and then I realized the third time, oh, okay, this ain't gonna happen. Because if I continue like this, then he's gonna continue, because that's all he knows how. But then the thing is, you need to also look at situations from the other person. That's the only way they know how to lead, hence that's what they're doing. Now, if you're gonna come to this person to tell them, I don't like this or that, you need to be emotionally intelligent with the way you come about doing that, you know. I would have a one-on-one because that's what I did. He didn't like it, but then doing the job I've done for so many years, and I used to work in IT support, so you learn to have a coat of steel so that it doesn't matter who cusses you, you have to be polite because they're recording when you worked in IT support. So I bring that to my job, especially with such people. So I don't raise my voice. I don't care how you scream. I start talking really slowly because I need to get my point across. And I need to set the scene on how we're working. This and this and this and this is what I do. X, Y, Z I don't do. The guy wanted me to start taking minutes notes, and I said the last time I did that was 15 years ago. I don't intend to start that today because of you. You understand what I mean? You can say it without insulting. He was shouting, and I was like, if you want to have a rant, go ahead and do that. But I can shout louder than you. I'm a black woman, okay? But I intend not to go down your path. So let's talk like adults. But you have to be careful going into that because that person is going to really rile you on so that you can scream like they do. And you need to be careful the way you bring the message across. Whatever it is, just ensure that you make them know that this is the way I want you to treat me. This is the way I want you to relate to me. I must also add that it's not all the time you're going to be successful in doing that. So if you know that you've gotten to that point where you have to do that, do it. If sometimes you need mediation, get someone else to help you. But then on the flip side, I can do that because I work as a consultant, so I'm happy to rock on to the next client. If you're in a situation where you can't do that, start looking for plan B before you do that. I'm just being realistic here. I'm trying to answer this in a few minutes. I don't think I want to go further, or else I'll go forever. I don't know if the panelists have anything to add as well. Thank you. I hope I answered it a little bit for you. If not, we can talk during lunch.
I just want to add to what she says. I find that emotional intelligence is also about knowing when to speak and when not to speak. So usually when there's a heated argument, you don't achieve much in the spur of the moment. You need to wait till tempers calm down completely. And then you can find a way in a very relaxed atmosphere and go back to the person and then start a conversation in a very, very relaxed way and, you know, find a way to bring your point out to that leader and not make any noise or disrespect or anything. He might not take it then, but you get him thinking. I can guarantee you that. You get him thinking. And you might not change immediately, but he'll be thinking. Yeah, that's all.
Excellent. So it seems like the theme of yesterday is continuing today. Excellent questions and some excellent responses. So panel, thank you for that, and thank you, sir, for that. Sir.
My name is Richard. Please, still on the emotional intelligence. In the class, you made mention that we should work with passion. We should love what we do, not focusing not too much on the money. But in a situation where you have a great leader, now I find myself in the public sector, and we are experiencing one. We've seen that there is money. Because you are a subordinate, you are not supposed to touch the money. The first day when you go there, the orientation will be that work, don't look at the money. And you see that most of the subordinates are emotionally traumatized. Yes, and they are not talking. So I find that it's affecting the work in that environment. So I see it's a complement something. It goes together. You shouldn't look at the money sometimes, makes us pull back. So he said that you should look at the job, we should work with passion, but we shouldn't consider the money. That aspect is somehow.
So, have you got that? You can I just, because not everyone might have that question, so I understand. Hold on. 1 2 1 2 seems to. So if I've got it right, your question is, if you have a situation where money is the driver, the driving force behind the work which you're doing, and your boss, your leader, is pushing you towards that, should you as a subordinate focus on that or try to enjoy what you're doing and be passionate about it? Is that right? Is that clear enough for you? Have you got that?
Yes, but I don't know if that is a question or a statement.
So I think the question is, do you work and focus on money, or do you work for the enjoyment? This is what I think the question is. Is that the question, sir? Yeah. So where, in other words, where are you placing your focus?
Well, I think it's a difficult one to answer. So I do what I do because I enjoy doing it. And I think if I got to a point where I don't enjoy doing it, I'd stop doing it. But then when you enjoy doing it and you're passionate about it, I'm talking from my perspective, the money tends to follow, right? Because you need money to survive and everything. But then what I was driving at is, if you're doing something you enjoy doing, it doesn't feel like work. You know, you can go on, you know, the long hours, the grinding and everything, because you enjoy doing it so much that it doesn't feel like work. But then as to whether you should choose money over passion, that one, it depends on people and their what you want and what you're going out for. From Louisa's perspective is, be passionate, enjoy what you do, and definitely the money would follow. And if I believe that if you're not passionate about it, when the hard times come, especially for entrepreneurs, startups, you may walk away.
Does that answer your question? Okay, thank you. Next question. Who's next up? I've got somebody up here.
So my question is to McCaul. So in our breakout session, we built airplanes. One of the things I observed was, during the whole process, when we noticed that we need to make some improvements in the flow of the folding, we had to change the arrangement and bring someone who was pretty good at the folding to the first part of the belt, right? And then what came in mind was, in reality, what if they change, sends that message to the person who was previously there that you are not that good, is the reason why we've changed you. It kind of affects the energy around the team. So how do you deal with changing and bringing the right people who will bring efficiency to the team and not affect the energy around the squad, so that they can still deliver and not feel bad that, okay, I was changed and affects our total production? So that's my question. Thank you.
Wow. What have you guys been eating? You've been eating oily fish to hype up your brains. Wow. There's some wild omega-3 flying around in here. Over to you, McCaul. Good luck.
This is right at the heart of the question, though, because I think if I may, my understanding of the question is, so I've got this team, and I've tuned it to be hyper-performing, and we get that self-competition, that drive, and suddenly we're really awesome. But my leader comes in and says, I'm changing the way you're working on this. You do that, and you do this. And then, is that the question? Nothing. Agile is helpful, and you know it, but there is no magic that makes your boss know that. There is nothing that you can do but educate and be patient. That's why we do this, is so that we can teach more and more people about what it takes when you are in the role of protecting a hyper-performing, a truly agile team. that's not talking about Agile stuff and doing the same, but really gets it and really starts to flow, when you are the leader, you will know better. And that's the best we can do.
Wow, passion. Next question, please. We're coming.
Yeah, sorry, I just want to support what you've said, because the example that was made was in our team. And the most important thing was that when we made that decision to swap positions around, the importance was on the issue of relevance. We moved ourselves around in the team, but the person that was moved from that position to that position still felt extremely relevant to the team and to the common goal. So at times when you actually move people around in the team, is to allow that flow of cross-functionality within the team. So at the end of the day, the position where you actually moved into was still critical to the success of the product that we were doing in the team. Thank you.
From my distance at the front of the room, I never would have known that. I wasn't even involved in that decision. So what we've learned creating these cross-functional teams is that we hire capable people to create these teams, and they can figure a lot of this out on their own. And so the reason I think you keep hearing people talk about leadership is because it's so critical that leaders adjust their way of working. And I get pulled into so many transformations we all have, where leaders say, change what they're doing because they need to do the Agile thing, and I just want them, they need to be more productive. And every responsible consultant in the room has turned around and said, this comes from you. You have to be the start of this change, or it's never going to go any further. You're right. It starts there. And your vision to that on the team level is so much clearer than it is 3, 4, 5 abstractions away. Yeah, thank you.
Next question.
Okay, so my question is to Daniel. I was part of his class. I want to find out, it's two things. I want to find out if you find yourself in an institution which is bureaucratic in nature. At the end of the class, we agreed that there are times you must have agility and bureaucracy working together. Now, the question is, how do you put these two things together where you already have a culture that is in existence, which is bureaucratic in nature? You have people who may not be willing to move, but you have, say, a leadership from the head that is ready to go down the road of bureaucracy. How do you tackle the pushbacks? That's the first question. Beyond the leader, how do you manage the individual teams? If you have a team of 4 as, say, a unit head, and you have the 3 people you are leading all pushing back, what do you do?
All right, I'll try. You know, in our session, we said one of the successes of the few successes of the Ghana police transformation was that the leader was aligned to this whole thing. He bought into it, and we also set up a cross-functional team, which is sort of removed from, if you like, the main business. So that team is focused on delivering some things for the future. The rest of the organization is just doing the normal, if you like, BAU stuff. But the team here, the cross-functional team is focusing on agility and innovation. So obviously, when the results start to show, then it starts to permeate to the other parts of the organization. But if you have a leader who is not in alignment with this whole thing, I think it will be difficult. I think Nana said yesterday that we have the top down, you have the bottom up, and the meat in the middle. You can start from bottom up. If it's like a small software team in an organization, they can start doing stuff. I mean, leaders want to see results at the end of the day. You can have a leader who is not aligned to this whole thing, but once you start to show some results to that leader, then he starts to buy into this whole thing. But at the end of the day, it depends on the context in which you find yourself in. I don't know whether I have addressed that question. You have answered.
Hold on, sir. Let's get a mic to you.
What I wanted to know is that you already have, say, the managing director buying into agility.
Mm-hmm.
However, you have a core group of staff or implementers who do not see the value in it. So how do you tackle that?
Well, I think somebody said earlier today I think it was Kofi or somebody, you need to find influencers. As a managing director, you need to find a few people who would, if you like, preach that message, who are leaders in their own right within the level, whether it's middle management or low level management or whatever. As a managing director, once you want this to happen, you need to identify those people who would now go and be your evangelist, preaching that message, rallying. It's like a rallying call to try and encourage others to join. That's the only way. I don't know whether McCaul or...
Okay, so most of the time when we go into organizations, I must say that you're sent to a department and nobody even wants to see you, let alone listen to what you have to say, okay? Because change is not an easy thing. Can you imagine somebody has done a certain thing for 10 years, has gotten somewhat delivery, and then you come and you just say, oh, we're going to change everything. They're going to fight you. That's standard. Now, in a change environment, you need to be the change you want to see in others. It starts with you. It starts with tiny steps, little wins every day. You have to persevere, keep at it. And then, like Daniel was saying, at some point they'll start seeing the results, and then the value starts trickling in. When you start, the time to deliver is reduced even by half. 8 weeks becomes 4 weeks. People start saying, hey, there's something in this. When you start plastering agile codes everywhere, and people start, you start getting people curious. When you're building a product and you have just a wireframe and you put it in a foyer so that people start thinking, what is that? You need to be deliberate as well in this process, but it takes time and it takes patience, and you have to keep at it. But then one thing I also need to say is that if you come into such an environment, you yourself don't need to go down the road, oh, they don't care, they're not going to do this, they're not listening, all the other people in my team don't want to do this, and now I'm the only one. Because then if you're not careful, you have this amazing chip on your shoulder, and then you become the one actually stopping the change, because you've already had a negative outlook towards this. You start slowly and you push at it every day, every day, every day. Some days I leave work with a client, and like one of the big car manufacturers we were working with, there are days I used to live and I used to feel like if somebody could see my back, they would see arrows all over my back because I got it today, right? But then every day I show up, every day I do the same thing, every day I explain, every day I try to let people understand why I'm doing things the way I'm doing. And with time, it starts seeping in slowly.
Answer your question? Awesome. So let's go to Cecil, we'll go to the gentleman at the back, and then we're going to have to wrap on this, okay?
All right, thank you, Louisa.
Can I have an easy question, please, for the panel?
All right, so, every organization at scale or at a point, you do all these audits, right? So I think last quarter, we're going through an HR audit. I mean, your presentation, you were like, there are no resources, right? I don't know, until they change those words. So we're trying to people, team, but it's still called HR, right? Quite unfortunate, but. So we went through an HR audit, and I was blown away at the kind of things that came out, right? The things that didn't even occur to me.
Could you speak up a little, please, Cecil?
Oh, sorry. I used to speak up a lot. Okay. So I'm saying at organizations, right, at every stage, especially startups, when you're growing to a point, you go through some kind of audits. So last quarter, we were going through our HR audits, all right, to try and understand how we manage our people. And some of the things that came up were very revealing, right? I'm actually looking through the audit right now, right? It turns out that we need to put out about 40 policies if we want to create an environment like they asked me, what kind of environment do you want your people to work in? I'm like, I want them to feel like they're working for Apple or Google when they come to campus. They're like, okay. So they did an audit and they suggested about 40 policies. Like, some include paternity policy. Like serious policies. And I'm like, Louisa, how do you weave emotional intelligence into these hard-written policies? So that at least from onboarding of those employees and then tuning their minds to now adjust to these policies, you are indirectly embedding emotional intelligence in them. Is that possible? Have you pulled that off before?
It is possible because the point is you need to see your employees as people. So you need to give them everything that they need to be happy, to be comfortable. In so doing, when they come to work, they would give you their best. Now, if I come to work and I have a child that is sick, and you wouldn't give me the time off to take my kid to the hospital or to let me work from home today because my baby is not feeling well, but you say because you're my boss, I need to come into work, and I'm not sure who's going to take care of the child, then how do you expect me to give you the best out of me? So when you're putting in these policies, let them be policies that are realistic, that people would relate and appreciate, and in so doing, you get the best out of your employees, because at the moment you think of them as individuals, sometimes you even have to think of yourself. What do I need? If I was in their shoes, what would I want my employer to give me? That makes a difference. Another thing you can do is talk to your staff. Let them give you, put a suggestion box somewhere. Let them tell you what they'd like to see next iteration to be. What should we do for you to feel like you're working at Google and Apple? And they will tell you what they want, because you also, if you want them to be happy, you have to give them what they want. It's not always you being up there saying, I think it's this and I think it's that. You have the recommendations, but then talk to the staff. They'll tell you what they want, and then you take it from there.
Wow. So I'll say, this is for you, ma'am. Pum. That's our own little private joke. Ask the lady, she'll tell you what it is. This is going to be the final question, and we're going to move on to the next section, which is going to take us up lunch.
All right, thank you very much. So, Miss Louisa, all right. So, regarding emotional intelligence, personally, I believe that this particular topic plays pivotal role in we as humans across all phases. It's a two-in-one question. First of all, at what level in our educational curricula do you think we need to start inculcating emotional intelligence as part of the, let's say, educational system? I'm saying this because in recent times, you've realized that quite a number of youth are falling short when it comes to self-regulation and self-awareness, and how to probably even manage within a team. So as a pioneer or as a facilitator in that regard, which level do you think we need to now start teaching or facilitating such topic in our educational system? Secondly, should you find yourself in a team where you have the generations cutting across, for instance, the X's, the Gen Z, the millennials, and then the alphas, how do you manage such a situation, a team, so they are able to work in cohesion. Right, thank you.
Easy, right?
There's a lot of omega-3 in the room.
I'm telling you, they've been taking their cod liver oil for sure.
For sure. Okay, so let's start with the first one about emotional intelligence and in school. I think you need to start it as early as possible. We need to start it even for parents, you need to start it at home. You need to teach the kids that, even yes and thank you is part of it. You need to teach them that words have power. As teachers, we need to be careful of what we say to kids. There was last time I was watching on TV the group of people that did the trip from Ghana to, London. And the young lady that was the mechanic said that in school her teacher told her she was bad at science. So she stopped and started it again later in life. And she was the female mechanic that went with the team to help them with their cars. We need to start it as soon as possible. We need to teach our kids how, to a certain extent, now I feel old by saying, the respect that the old ones were taught, you understand? It starts with the little things. So we need to teach it as early as possible. It needs to be, in my opinion, we don't necessarily need to have a curriculum called emotional intelligence, but we can teach it in so many different ways. But we need to start as soon as possible. What was the second question?
Beyond my recollection, the Gen Z, he was talking about Gen. I think when you said Gen Z, I zoned to my children and immediately switched off. They fall in those buckets, millennials and Gen Zs. I only found out about it yesterday, so.
So with regards to that, if you have a team and you're a team leader, then I think one of the ways I will do that is getting my team of different generations, that's how I understand this question, to do activities out of work. And, activities like I worked with a startup in Shoreditch and we had to do a silly thing, but although it was silly, at the end of it, we became better as a team. So what we did was that we had to take, they're like cycles and it has a bench, and then the whole team needs to cycle together through London, and we were drinking. Okay, so it's a bench, we're sitting, we've got pedals, everyone is pedaling away. If you pedal less, of course, the bicycle wouldn't go as fast as possible, and we're drinking all kinds of shots, yeah? But the point of the matter is, it meant that the older ones used to say, oh, when I was a kid and I was paddling, this was what I used to do. So they started teaching the younger ones. And the younger ones were like, but I paddle and then I get tired easily. And they were like, yeah, you're good. You're doing it too fast. Pace yourself. So creating an environment where they could relate, they could work together, and together we could get our bicycle moving around London. It was teamwork in a different space or in a different environment. So, but then what that did was that they related to each other. Everyone was using their way of communicating to learn from each other. Knowledge was being passed from the older generation to the younger generation. So what that meant was that when we went back to work, respect was there. They could still talk and laugh with each other. It meant the younger ones, when they had an issue, there was one man that they could go to and say, how can I do this, So you need to create an environment where, or something, most of the time out of work, where they can relate to each other as human beings first. And then when it's like that, when they come, the same people come into the work environment, then that's, because they've created a bond somehow, they can bring that in and use that to relate and work.
Outstanding. Does that answer your question, sir? Yes. Well, I think our panel really need a round of applause. I mean, just from the intensity, quality of the questions and the responses, there is no doubt, and we'll have to find a metric for for the level of engagement. Akin, I'm challenging you with that. I want my desk in the morning. That was really fantastic. So thank you to you for your participation, and thank you for your great facilitation. Thank you. The panel.